that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
It's a tale as old as time, when a drag daughter from a previous alumni gets on the show, shining a light on her that instantly makes viewers feel more acquainted with them, given that they at least know the queen that played a big part in making her the person she is today. Season 11 is a prime example of this, where we had Plastique Tiara, the drag daughter of Alyssa Edwards, Kahana Montrese, the drag daughter of Coco Montrese, Miss Vanjie, the daughter of Alexis Mateo, and Honey Davenport, the drag mother of Monet Exchange. It was probably the first time that there really was a focus on the concept of the drag family, or even the way that it was now expanding the legacies of certain alumni, by giving them yet another reason to be in the forefront of the fan base, this time through their own drag daughters. Yet, what's the point of even having a drag family? And why has it turned into such an important aspect of the way the fan base watches the show? Well, when drag daughters get on Drag Race, things can go in many different directions. So let's get into it, but before we start, so now that we just started 2025, everyone's talking about making big changes, but instead, why not keep it simple? For me, it's about consistency. Going to the gym here and there, taking walks to clear my head, and maybe even remembering to cook those vegetables in the fridge. And you know what's been making all of that easier? My Raycon Everyday Earbuds, who are the sponsors for today's video. These things are seriously great. The 32-hour battery life means I barely even think about charging them. And when I do, 10 minutes gives me 90 minutes of use, perfect for last minute plans. Plus, the active noise cancellation keeps me focused, whether I'm working or trying to ignore the chaos at the gym. And can we talk about the price? Raycon gives you premium sound at literally half the cost of other big name brands. Affordable and amazing. I'm also obsessed with how sleek the case is. Mine is a great color and it's so compact and cute. Plus, it charges wirelessly, which is such a time saver. I just toss it onto the charger and forget about it. Although, if for some reason you're still not sure, don't be, because Raycon has a 30-day happiness guarantee. Are you ready to upgrade your 2025? Hit the link in the description to grab your Raycons. Go to buyraycon.com/greengate to get 15% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get 15% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/greengate. Now, let's begin. For newer fans that are just learning about the idea of a drag family, it's easy to assume that just because someone is related to an iconic queen, that it automatically means that they'll deliver a similar presentation to what their mother brought on their run through the show. But as we've seen, that's not always the case. An example being Violet Chachki, the drag daughter of Dax! Violet had a stellar run on season 7, resulting in her winning the crown, which sort of made you think that since Violet did so well, that for sure her drag mother Dax, who theoretically must have taught a lot to Violet about the art form, would be equal or maybe even surpass her. But she'd end up getting eliminated on the second episode in a double elimination after having some very suspicious padding on her buttocks area. So then, what exactly is the point of being adopted into a drag family? Part of every city's drag scene is that there's a group of queer artists that get to meet each other in a shared experience of loving along with participating in the art form of being a drag queen. Within the subgroup of the LGBT community, that strong bonds can be built between those that have more in common with each other. Yet some drag families take their bonds a lot more seriously than others, especially when it comes to the more legendary legacies. I'm sure, for example, Roxy Andrews, the drag daughter of Erica Andrews, has a bunch of family secrets like drag tips or tidbits for when you're in a pageant that they try to keep within the family, establishing traditions among themselves when preparing for a show. On the other hand, we have drag orphans that end up having a completely different experience. They go into the world pretty much blind, with no fan base that they can mooch off of. This can tie into their social media presence too. When you don't have a mentor, you're a lot more independent in terms of how you're gonna get gigs and establishing yourself in the local scene. But those that succeed at making a name for themselves can make it easier for their future drag daughter to get a head start in their career. Aja is a good example of this, who went on to make a name for herself in the New York City drag scene that led to her debut on season 9, cementing herself as a super commercially successful queen. This gave her the opportunity to also platform her drag family called the House of Aja, that included future alumni like Dahlia Sin from season 12 and Candy Muse from season 13. It made it so when they were announced to the world on their respective seasons, they off the bat got a pretty strong support / expectation from the fans, who attributed projected their love for Aja onto them. In terms of sizes, I'd say the Davenport family tree is among one of the biggest, at least within the connection to the franchise, because it gets to a point where some of the recent additions to the family will have full-on great aunts, cousins, sister-in-laws, etc., which is pretty elaborate. Most of these families go beyond just being a cute way of grouping the bonds between queens to straight up ongoing legacies that have their own rich history behind them. And it makes sense. Part of drag has always been the community that comes along with it. Even in the decades prior to the arrival of RuPaul's Drag Race, if you were a drag queen, you were an outcast, to the point where even people within the LGBT community would shun them, because they just didn't understand the value in the art form. Essentially, these were truly the most ostracized in the community, so it resulted in their bonds being a lot more stronger than your average friendships. Yet, despite all the good parts, there are some burdens that come from being adopted into a drag family. For one, we have the amount of expectation that is placed on queens according to their drag family lineage, such as Carrie Colby on season 14, that was seen as someone that had a lot to live up to, since Sasha Colby was a former Miss Continental, a legend in the pageant scene, and was a big driving force for why Carrie was one to look out for. Plus, it's ultimately what enticed Sasha Colby herself to audition for the show for the first time in years. Another angle of fan expectations is how even rivalries between previous alumni like Coco Montrese and Alyssa Edwards would be carried from season 5 all the way to season 11, when people hyped up the fact that among the cast was Kahana Montrese, the drag daughter of Coco, and Plastique Tiara, the drag daughter of Alyssa. Obviously, nothing ended up happening between the two since the drama had nothing to do with them, but it was a good way of showing how the concept of drag families sort of makes a lot of the fan base view them as if the queens were the true biological children of these artists. And it's because of this that they must have similar personalities to each other or aesthetics, which is funny to an extent. So yes, overall, while there is some burdens that come with having to carry the legacy of your drag family, for the most part, the benefits far outweigh the cons. I mean, sometimes I wonder if in the real world of drag, if up-and-coming baby queens tried to find the most well-known queen in the city so that they can develop a relationship that eventually gets adopted into their drag family. I mean, it would be a pretty beneficial career move. Let's say your drag name is, for example, Tabitha. Well, what do you think would get people's attention the most? Hearing, "Here comes Tabitha" from across the street? Or "Here comes Tabitha, the drag daughter of Trixie Mattel"? There's like a sudden peak of interest that enters your mind when you know an individual has that relation to a big ticket name, especially considering that deciding to be someone's drag mother means you're choosing to be their mentor and take them under your wing. So it's a pretty significant part of the drag communities. Right now, on season 17, we have Lana Jarrett, the drag daughter of Lux Noir London from season 15, who is the drag daughter of Mo Hart from season 10. And considering that Mo Hart is also the drag mom of Robin Fierce and Black Peppa, I'm not exactly sure what they would be considered in relation to Lana. But anyways, at the time I'm making this video, only the first 2 episodes of the season have aired. I've gotten to see her talent show that starts off with a small tribute to Lux. Some may feel that this is a moment that came across as gimmicky, but to be honest, it seems completely fine for a queen to want to honor their drag mother, especially since it's on this episode that one of the queens in the workroom made a joke that drag daughters are the nepo babies of the drag world, which is for sure true. Of course, that has nothing to do with the talents of any of them, since each of them have an individuality about them that builds the core of what their brand will be, but it's important to acknowledge how having a last name that comes from a very widely known queen who is respected by the community and the fanbase of Drag Race as a whole can make it so that a lot more people will take notice of you and see the potential in you in a way that may not have automatically happened had it just been a queen who doesn't belong to any high achieving drag family. That's why it's interesting to see how some drag daughters adopt the last name of their mom, like Tsunami Muse, daughter of Candy Muse, but then there's the ones that keep their own name so that it's not as obvious to the average fan, like Diabetti, the daughter of Crystal Method. It goes without saying that the more time goes by, the more descendants of legendary queens will come to compete. I'm pretty sure, for example, that Alyssa Edwards is the queen that has had the most amount of drag daughters on the show, with Shangela, Lagondra Estranja, and Plastique Tiara. Arguably, you could say that Gia Gunn was also part of her drag family too, since she joined the House of Edwards for a couple years. But yeah, that opens up a whole different discussion with queens that get adopted into a family well after they've already become established queens. Like we saw in season 15 2016 when Mistress adopted Sugar and Spice. Then we have the group of queens that many people don't even know are related, like Chad Michaels being the drag mom of Morgan McMichaels, or Lanacia Sparks from season 5 being the drag daughter of none other than Madame LaQueer. The duo that makes the most sense to me though is Alexis Michelle being the drag mother of Jan. Like they are literally two sides of the same coin. But then we have Miss Cracker being Bob the drag queen's drag daughter that is still so baffling to me to this day, because while they're both comedy queens, their sense of drag, or I guess performance style, is so vastly different. Essentially, when it comes to drag families, it's important to remember that most of the time, queer people were shunned by their immediate family. So it makes sense that over the decades, these communities would start to develop bonds that mimic that of the way we always wanted to have close relatives. Like RuPaul once said, we as gay people, we get to choose our families and we get to choose the people we want to be around. At this point, World of Wonder has the chance to do an entire main season with a themed cast where every queen that competes is somehow related to a drag family of one of the previous alumni. But who would you like to see on the show if this happened? Let me know in the comments. Are you ready to upgrade your 2025? Hit the link in the description to grab your Raycons. Go to buyraycon.com/greengate to get 15% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get 15% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/greengate. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Sari Tish, Natasha DeLeon, Las Potitas, and Cool Gal Nan. And in the Green Squad, we have Cayman Rider Furry, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Alicia and Chloe, Jack Beck, Not a Punch But a Keek, Captain Chaos, Bashir with the Good Beard, Galeria Gomez, Dea, Dea, Sarah G, Scarlet Rose, Boiled Peanut, Kimberly Marin, Max Whale, and Olivia Marr. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like this video and comment below to help me with the algorithm. And I'll see you guys next time.